Yep, you can go.
Started? All right. So, hi everyone. Welcome. I'm Ruben, and okay, this is the Q. I will be a hello. You there?
Hi, I'm Abel.
Yeah, and this. So, welcome everyone, and this is gonna be. I don't know what your expectations are, but this is gonna be a rough outline. Okay, it's gonna be not exactly how to design or how to code. It's gonna be more about handoff. Like, how do you design? How do you optimize your design for code, right? Uh, so it's we're gonna start with the basics about design. We're gonna go on how to some tips on how to optimize the code, optimize our design for code, and then move on to some tools and some tips on collaboration, right? So let's start off with the very basics. What is design? So in a very broad perspective, right? Design can just be defined in a line saying design is rendering of intent, right? In any perspective, in any scenario, if you have any thought or an idea in your head, the process of making it real is called design. When it comes to a digital perspective, from a digital standpoint, design is anything and everything that you see on your screen, right? I'm not going to get into all the other theory as to why is design important and why it makes so much of a difference. I'll just go over it quickly, saying what you see on the screen right now. Uh, Design is important because what you see right now on the screen is more engaging than this, right? This is more professional than this, and this you can take this seriously as compared to this, right? And if you're still not sold, I'll just throw a scientific theory at you. It's called aesthetic usability effect. This says that anything and everything that looks good is considered more usable by people. Um, so I'm not an expert. I just have like 2 years of experience as a designer. Been coding some apps and been designing some apps and other things in the institute. So I'll not make bold statements as to what you should do and what you should not do, but I'll just share some key learnings over my journey as a designer in the institute, right? So we made a couple of apps, and I'll just share some key learnings as to what you should do and what you should not do.
Did Ruben just cut off?
Here it
Okay.
begins.
So this was a young designer. This is a
Ruben, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt. We lost you for a sec there.
yeah.
Can you repeat? Yep, sure. Awesome.
Uh, where did you lose me exactly? I'll need that.
The journey.
So was I here? Where? The journey. All right. So yeah, I was just saying ki I don't have like a ton of experience so that I could make conclusive and bold statements as to what you should do, what you should not do. But I can take you through my work as a designer in the institute, and I can take you to the key learnings that I have had as a designer, and I can share those with you so that it may be of some help to you, right? So let's start with Monday morning. Right, Monday morning was my first app in the institute. And as a designer as well. So I did not have a lot of idea as to what I was doing, right? I was just starting out, and I made this completely on Illustrator, right? And what I really learned was ki when you are starting out as a designer, right? You are young, right? And you want to make that app that looks like it has been designed professionally. Like, it looks like it has been designed per se. You want to make it look different. And that might or might not be a good idea, right? So this is something that I wanted someone to tell me when I was starting out as a designer, and it was about native components, right? So whenever you're designing for any platform, be it Android or iOS, what you need to know is the value of native components. So there are three things, right? Three things what native components help you do. Native components, as in the standard material design, the search box or maybe the input field or anything that you see natively on any app or on any platform, right? Those components. So a couple of things. They serve a couple of things, right? So one is they're easier to build, right, compared to something that you create out of the blue, right? Secondly, they go a long way, right, in familiarity, in creating familiarity. So when as a user, right, I've been using these apps. Let's say I'm on Android platform and I've been using certain apps, and I am used to my screen looking a particular way, right? I know what a search bar looks like. I know what a button looks like, right? And I need that to be translated into all other apps that I use, so that it becomes familiar to me and I'm able to use it as seamlessly as I do with other apps, right? So these are the couple of things. So material design guidelines that Google provides and Apple's human interface guidelines. These two are a certain set of guidelines that you can use while creating your designs when you're starting out, or maybe when you're starting out as a designer. Now, these are called guidelines. They're not rules, so it's not something that you can't break. Obviously, you can break them. You can create whatever you like, but as a guideline, as a standard practice, you're supposed to use these so that your app is much more usable, much more aesthetically pleasing, and much more in line with the platform, right? Secondly, building your inspiration. So you, as a designer, we go across all these, profiles on all these artworks on Dribble, right? They have all these jazzy new UIs and whatnot, right? When you design in a real life scenario, when all those designs get implemented, you have to keep in mind what your users are going to take it as, right? So let's say I design a completely random new, as you can see here, right? This particular pie chart, right? It's all क्या कहते हैं, एक sort of jazzy according to that time, even not according to that time. But anyway, the goal was to make it jazzy and something different. But as it turns out, right, when it gets implemented, hello.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Ruben.
Yeah. Okay, I just heard a boom in my head. Okay, never mind.
Yes,
Alright.
with me.
So
Can you guys, do you mind turning off your video? Like it's lagging a little bit, so, and it will also
Sure.
helpful for the bandwidth.
Sure. One second.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All right.
Back. Yeah, go, but you can go ahead. Sorry.
Perfect. So building an inspiration, right? So when you make certain jazzy things, right? When these provide you with a couple of problems. One, it gives your developers a nightmare to to edit your native elements and customize them to a way that you want. One, and two, they might not be as understandable for the user. So you look at this, you and me as students, or maybe you could call Gen Z, we look at it and we understand what it means, right? We know it, like somehow we can make out that it might be a pie chart, right? For a person like for the age of your parents, or maybe an old person, right? Something like this might be really confusing as to what it is, right? So it presents major usability issues. So you got to make sure when you're taking inspiration, right? Especially when you're taking conceptual inspiration out of Dribble or something, you got to make sure that you check it for usability and you check it for dev effort, right? So good design is design that is invisible and self-explanatory. So contrary to what we think as new designers, it should stand out. Good design is actually something that blends in, something that you don't notice until it's broken, right? Something that works just as is expected to, and something that just is seamless and understandable and very explanatory, right? Moving on to the second thing, this was done for then SCP, now ICS. We wanted to build an app. So now by this point, I had matured as a designer. I had known ki matlab, you got to use those standard things that are there, like cards and title bars and stuff like that, right? Yet I had no experience. I had no idea until then ki matlab, how things actually work, right? So let's say ki, what happened. I'll tell you an anecdote from this. What happened is when we were building this, I designed this particular UI that had as a card background, it had three different gradient stops. Like, okay, let's say illustrate better. I'll just explain this to you. So this is, let's say this is a rectangle, and in which it starts from a shade of yellow, goes on to a shade of red, and ends on a shade of purple, right? So it is a three-stop gradient, right? So now what happens is when you design something like this, and when you want to code it, right? For as far as I have heard, I still don't have a lot of information about this, but as far as I've heard, this is a nightmare, right? Making a three-stop gradient as a background inside the card is a really difficult job. So when you are, let's say, under a time constraint, when you're short of developers, when you're short of when you have certain constraints put on you, you need to know whether or not you really need these visuals, right? You need to make a call. Ki matlab, do I really need this three-stop gradient, or a two-stop gradient would do? Sure, matlab, obviously if you make this, it can be implemented, but there are constraints that you need to put on yourself, and as a team you need to take into consideration, right? So the point here is that you need to know how your code works, how your design is going to be implemented, right? You need to know that whatever you're designing, how can it be brought to life, right? Moving on, then we had this project, GoGrocery. So GoGrocery was a project for one of these startups from NIT. Um, so here it was more than an institute scenario, right? It was a startup, and there were many stakeholders involved. So stakeholder is a person who's getting affected directly by the work you're doing, right? So when you go into real life scenarios like this, right, a lot of other things come into perspective. So when whatever you're designing, right, is not yours alone, right? One, it has to be used by people and it has to be optimized by them. Second, it needs to be in line with the stakeholders' expectations. It needs to be aligned with what your other teams like engineering, business, marketing, etc., what they want, right? So I'll just give you a quick idea as to what happened, right? To illustrate how you can understand how need to understand business to do good design, right? So what happened is when with this app we had so the owner, right, he had this idea that the person who would deliver, so this was basically an app to deliver grocery, right? So when a person orders grocery from one shop, the shop owner takes in his order and sends a guy out for delivery, right? So now the thing is, what happens when a person orders from different places, right? If I order, let's say, some pulses from one store, some other groceries from other store, what happens then, right? So like, will the order? So ideally, what was like not ideally exactly what was in reality what was happening is if you order from different places, you'll get different delivery boys coming to you and giving you the order, right? Which is not really a good expectation. So now we as designers, we wanted to know, why is this happening, right? Why we are doing it in the first place? Why can't we have a delivery boy who goes to different stores, collects stuff, and comes and delivers it to the user, right? So as it turned out, there were certain restrictions that were there, and at the end, we had to do something that was in line with the business's demands, right? So now, how do you optimize your UI for it? How do you make the user aware that he's gonna get his delivery in parts, right? His order will be delivered by two different people at two different times of the day. How do you make them aware, right? So all these challenges come up, right? And you need to be in sync with all the different teams when you're designing in a real life scenario. Second is knowing your user. So when we were designing for GoGrocery was a app that was supposed to go like in tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? Cities like Rourkela, cities like basically not metros, right? So when you're designing for people in these cities, what stuff do you need to keep in mind? From a design perspective, from a user perspective, from a dev perspective. So let's say you put in like crazy animations, right? Like every step of the way you have animations coming in. Yeah, sure, it adds delight, right? But what would happen when the same design goes to a tier 3 city with low internet connection and with people who are struggling to get, I don't know, 1 GB of data, right? And you have tons of images on your phone and they're not optimized. What happens then, right? So when you're designing, you need to make sure कि कहाँ पे आपका app जा रहा है. Where is your app going to be implemented? Where is it? Who are your target users, right? So you need to collaborate, right? It's not a one man's effort. You need to collaborate with everyone in your team and everyone who's building that product and come together and design with the user in mind. You might like something, you might like that, you know what, it's a crazy animation, beautiful animation, we should put it in, adds delight, etc., etc. You need to think, when I am a user who's in this particular scenario, how will it translate onto me, right? Other than that, there are some tips that I have other than this. Some little things that I learned here and there. The power of analytics, right? So certain when you're designing, right, the best part of digital product design is that it's like a car that's running, and if you see that there's a problem in the engine, you can fix the engine while the car is running. That's the best part, right? So it's like whenever your product is live, people are using it, you can see what problem they're facing, you can understand where it's going wrong, and you can fix it as your product is live. That's the best part about digital product design, right? So analytics essentially helps you understand this. Softwares like Amplitude, Google Analytics let you know where your users are clicking until like up until that point, to that little minute detail, they let you know where your users are clicking, what they're most interested in, and a lot of other stuff that will help you understand what is going right and what is going wrong in your design, right? So that you can fix it as you go. So you need to understand how analytics work, right? You need to collaborate with your design, with your engineering. You need to get this data. You need to understand how it's working, and then implement these changes on your design so that you can design a better product, right? Next is design systems. So what are design systems? Off the top of Google, if you search design system definition, you'll get this. The design system offers a library of visual style, components, and other concerns documented and released by an individual, team, or community as a code and design tool so that adopting products can be more efficient and cohesive. So what design system in a very broad perspective is a set of components, right? So let's say you're designing for let's say a very very vast project, right? That has, let's say, I don't know, 100 screens or 150 screens, right? It doesn't even have to be that big, but basically what I'm saying is if you're designing a real life product that's going to be live, right, it's always a good idea to have some design system, right? So what design system basically does is whatever components you have, let's say a search bar or maybe a button or anything as such, right, it makes it a fixed module, right? So in your design, when you have a library of components, right, what you can basically do is drag and drop and make your UI in seconds, right? And similarly for design. So what design systems translate beautifully to engineering, because it can help them make certain set of component libraries in the form of code, and then get it translated directly, and just basically use this drag and drop methodology there also, right? So it helps you do a couple of things. One, it's easy to develop, it's easy for your coders. Secondly, it helps maintain uniformity. So now many times it gets difficult when you're making a very extensive app, right? It becomes really difficult to make uniformity your goal, right? So that every search bar, every button, every input field, everything looks the same. So when you have a component library, right, when you're dragging and dropping stuff from there, you make sure that it is always going to be the same uh, design throughout your entire app, right? And one last thing would be annotation. So this happened with me for Monday morning app. So when you design something, right, you have certain ideas in your mind, because you're, at least back then, you were designing statics, right? And even now also, with prototyping tools like Figma and I don't know, Framer and all that, right, you still don't have a very 100% control over what you're designing, right? So you still need some input. So what I'm saying is, when you're designing, let's say I want to tell when you tap on this button, this happens, right? Either I can prototype it if we can do that, but if not, I need to add a note for the developer. You know what, this is what I expect from the app. You can't make certain things and have certain ideas in your head and then go on to the developer and tell them that, you know what, this is what I expected, this is not what it is looking, right? You need to add that, you know what, this is what I expect and this is what should happen, so the developer can basically make it work like that, right? So that's a very important thing. So yeah, so can we have a volunteer? We need a volunteer with a laptop. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And this is going to be a fun session. So if anyone volunteers, we can actually have some fun. And
Yeah.
whoever volunteers, we need to do a screen share from his or her laptop, and it will be fun. We promise you, it will be fun.
You want to make sure everyone got what you have explained so far, like questions?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure. Any questions? You're welcome. You can, if you're too shy, you can put it on the chat, or if you can unmute yourself and ask.
And also, this is not the end of the session, just informing.
Also, yes. We're halfway through it though. So okay, we don't have any questions, do we?
Ruben and I are very adamant. So unless we have a volunteer, so we won't do this activity. We'll just skip it. So if you actually want to understand the fun part of it, one of you have to volunteer. So
you know what? I know a lot of people in the chat. You just pick someone up. It'll be very cool.
Let's give them 1 minute and let's see before we start picking up.
Yeah. It's not, we're not testing you guys, don't worry. It's just a little fun activity that we want to do. So
this is not a test or any exam or something. This will be fun. We have Shashwat saying he'll volunteer. So Shashwat, do you want to do a quick screen share?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing 1 second.
Right. What do I have to share though?
Open Chrome, we'll let you know.
Chrome or on Firefox. Should
It's
I
fine, it's fine.
discuss?
That's fine. Open your browser, whatever it is.
All right. Like I'm on
And
the
o-
browser. Okay.
and share your screen and open the link that is sent on the chat.
All right.
Others can try it later. Let's see how it goes for Shashwat. It's for every one of us to learn. So you can try out that link later. You can save the link. So let us all try to understand what Ruben has said and how it implements.
Okay, I'm having a look. Right. I just shared the entire screen.
Yeah. Awesome. We can see your screen. Just open that link.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah. Abel, would you like to explain this?
By any chance, has any of you ever tried this?
No, I have not. I don't know about it.
Okay. So this is a website made by a designer. Rama has tried it. Okay, has tried it. Okay, good that he did not volunteer. So this is a website made by a designer. I'm not sure of the name to help us understand.
Hello, Abel. 1 second. Can you speak into the mic? Come a little closer.
Better,
No,
better.
little. No, we could.
Is it fine?
Not really.
Okay, Ruben, go ahead. Explain. I'll disconnect and join.
This is fine.
Yeah. So this is a website made by a designer to help the end users understand the importance of user experience and user interface. It's more of the website looks clean, like it's not very bad design with the user interface. What we want to understand is how the user experience translates when it goes to the end user. So it's a challenge that you need to sign up to this particular website in the least amount of time. It's a messed up website, so you can start anytime from now. And participants are feel free to prompt Shashwat so that if you think that he is doing something wrong, so feel free to prompt him so that we can do the process faster.
So I just begin with clicking no.
That is what you're supposed to find out.
Like it says no, but click here. There is nothing to click here. And
We want the
This is
participants to
confusing.
help you.
That's a fine part, dude. Come on. Yeah. Also, you can help him in chat, please, if you can.
okay.
Dev account says to click no.
Like nothing happens when you click no.
Rama says to click on click.
That you cannot click on click.
Soumya says to click on here.
Okay,
that works.
I have no clue what happened. Okay, something worked. So
Yeah.
I password requires at least one Cyrillic character. How do I?
Does anyone by any chance know what a Cyrillic character is?
Some symbol, I guess.
Okay, let's try how it goes. At the end of it, we want you all to say what all are the components that went wrong here so that we all learn together from this.
Email. What is the other two? Okay. The other .com.
Okay, let me see if you can figure this out. Oh, that was close. That
So
was close.
it is written close.
Yeah.
It's not even close. You're supposed to click on the C of the close. That was
Yeah, the
that was
copyright.
awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I do not accept. only three interests.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see if you can figure this three interest apart.
Select all. Okay, let's select all words.
So
Okay.
I suppose you all are understanding the importance of user experience, because the design of the website looks neat. Like the design is not bad. The user interface is not real bad.
So this basically helps you understand how mental models come into design, right? So visually this looks fine, right? But when that pop-up comes up, for example, right, you tend to go to the top right and click on the button to close it. But as it turns out, it's an expand view button, right? So as a user, the mental models you have and how they affect your design, right? That really is clearly demonstrated in this example.
Shashwat, can you try dismissing the bottom right wala section?
Bottom.
Bottom right.
Okay. I think that is a bad idea.
Okay. It's good not to mess up with things you don't know.
And it'll just go upside to bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, does it go? Okay, it'll go down. Alright. There's three uploaded. Alright.
Oh, right. Okay.
This is
So
okay.
yeah.
Let me see if you can do this. This is fun. This is kind of a bit fun. Ruben, have you tried this?
No, I didn't go this far. I mean, I was frustrated by that point. Second validator.
Okay. So this is fun. You will enjoy this. Nice.
There is a title. Alright.
We won't do the entire part. The last section, even I have not covered, and it takes a lot of time. Let us try to finish with this part
Okay.
only.
Number.
Yeah, so
Uh, why is it all black and white? That's. I just click on anything, it does not matter.
I
What
haven't.
is.
I don't know
what
what
is-
box is.
Uh,
Even I don't know what is box. Random Naldo.
seems alright.
Okay, perfect.
Age and birth date don't match. Like, is there a. Where did I enter? Okay. So then check that. It's 2020, so 98. Gender and title don't match. How do the gender and title not match? Okay.
Okay, that is pretty much of what we
Yeah.
capture, and this is like real messy. This is more messy than the previous all parts combined. Let us not try to get into that. So, yeah. So, can some of you say what all went wrong? Like, what could have been better? Like, the UI looks neat. It's not bad, but the user experience is important, and this is where
Oh, tap on lock. Oh shit.
this is where what
Shit,
Ruben said about guidelines come into play. Like, although the guidelines at very first glance look more about how the UI looks and how the components look, but those guidelines, the material design guidelines, Apple's human interface guidelines, all those are built taking into consideration the mental mindset of people. Like, we know that if a window opens on the top right, we expect the close button to be. So taking all these things into consideration is how the entire guidelines are made. So following them, you will rarely go wrong if you follow them. You might go wrong, but you will rarely go wrong if you follow them. So
So as an idea is as a starter, right? When you're starting out in design, it's very it's preferred that you should use these guidelines because you environments where you break them, right? So you need basically from a novice to a learner designer, your journey is to know when to break these guidelines, right? So yeah.
I'll stop presenting.
yeah, sure. Ruben, present ka?
Yeah, 1 second.
Anyone has any questions until now? Else I'll continue. Feel free to unmute and say. Although share this messed link with your friends and make them annoyed.
Yeah. So I'll continue.
Yeah. Just 5-10 seconds. Anyone questions, or shall we continue? I think we can continue. Okay, Ruben, chalo, बढ़ते आगे. Yeah. So now coming over to tools, as Ruben mentioned that his first version of the app that he made for us together, that we made, the Monday Morning app, he made in Illustrator. So he was then in second year, I was in third year. So we were starting off with a full scale app, and Monday Morning was the first full-fledged app that we had developed. So at then we knew tools which is used to do code, which is used to do design, but we didn't know tools which can help us do both. Like the transition from design to code, we didn't know that very well then, to be very frank. Okay. So one of the tools that can be used, that can help a lot, is Adobe XD. Adobe XD is recommended to people who are making mobile apps, especially in Flutter. The reason is, you can see the interface of Adobe XD, and to the right, we have the design of the actual app. This is not a photo on the right, it's an actual app. So the components from Adobe XD can be exported directly to a mobile app code component directly for Flutter using Adobe XD. So this is something that if some of you are going to use design and code together in any of the projects, Adobe XD is something that you can look up for. Adobe XD has slight issue with collaboration. So multiple designers collaborating together is a bit of an issue, but that is something which can be compromised for if you are directly able to get the components from design to code in one quick export. It's one export and you have the code for the entire material app for the Flutter app. Make sense? So let's move on to the next tool. This is where Ruben is supposed to click the next button. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Framer Motion and Code Sandbox. Framer Motion is, I would say, a library, not exactly a library. It's a toolkit. It's a toolkit, especially for web developers, especially React. So using Framer Motion, you can do all the fancy animations which designers can do in Adobe Animate or Adobe XD. All those animations can be rendered in code. The reason Framer Motion does not directly have an export from Adobe or something. You can design everything in Framer Motion and export it to code. That is one way. Else, Framer Motion has an option to import from Figma and export. This is not seamless. The Figma import is a bit broken, but still good enough rather than starting up from scratch. The advantage of using Framer Motion is that given that you are using material design guidelines. So if you look at those guidelines, and the design team and the technology team both are using the guidelines. So you will have parameters for design and animation. So to the bottom, you can see we have a parameter known as stiffness and damping. This is a parameter that is used for designing animations, spring-like animation. So you click a button, it moves fast when it's not close to the end, and then it moves slow when it's close to the end, stuff like that. So that spring animation can be done using this same parameter in whatever software your designer is using. So even if the designs cannot be exported directly, you just take the parameters from those design files and put it into Framer Motion. So although you don't get the entire components of the code, you get these parameters. So once you have the parameters, you can replicate the entire design. Another advantage of using Framer Motion is that it is tightly integrated with a website which provides a code sandbox. So this entire interface that you see is a website. So you write the code on one side, you can see the animation on the right side without installing any library or setting up anything on your local system. So you can mix and match stuff online without having to download large libraries and packages. And this is available free of cost. So Framer Motion is something you should check out if you're into web dev. Adobe XD is something if you're into Flutter development. With that, let's move to the next one. Once again, this is where Ruben moves. Yeah. So
I did.
yeah, 3 more tools. One slide for 3 tools, because I know there are multiple tools available out there which I have not mentioned. Some of the 3 that I wanted to mention is the first and the second are very similar, Lottie and Rive. These are used to build animations, 2-dimensional animation. So you see a fancy animation of when you click a button, something fancy happens on the screen. If you want to do stuff like that, you can use the first two, Lottie or Rive. The third is Three.js, which can be used to make 3-dimensional animations. The one that you see in the picture is made using Three.js. It's a very famous app made by a designer in Three.js, and this is his portfolio. So his portfolio is a 3-dimensional game in which people can move around his car and read through his portfolio and even play games. So if you want to into animations, Lottie, Rive, and Three.js are tools you should check out. Rive is something that is really cool. The advantage of using Rive is that the interface of Rive for designers is very much similar to the apps that you use like Adobe XD, Adobe After Effects. All the features of animation, Puppeteer, and everything is available very similar to the user interface of the Adobe tools in Rive. So it makes easy for designers to design the way that he knows in Rive, and you can export it directly into code in Rive. Very much similar is available in Lottie as well. Lottie has an option to import from Adobe After Effects, which is a tool which designers use to make animations, and then you can directly export it to code. We had used Lottie for Monday morning at one point in time, and it worked pretty well. So it works well. With that, let's move to the next part. These are some of the tools that we have used and tried and tested. These are not the only tools available. So I'm sure that some of you might find better tools. So if you know, do inform us, do spread the word among the community so that everyone benefits. The whole idea of the session and the community is that people don't commit the same mistakes again and again. So we did mistakes and we don't want you to do the same mistakes. So starting from the journey of Monday morning, the first thing that everyone should understand is that you need to code along. What I mean by that is you don't wait for the entire design set, like the entire app to be made in the design framework, and then you start coding Hello World in the code side. Design and codes runs parallelly. Some component is ready in design, you start coding it. The advantage of this is that you understand the flaws and issues that happen quicker. So a small issue that happened for Monday morning was that we did the entire design first and then we started to code. Okay. So once we get the design and we start coding, only then you will realize that some things are difficult to code. Okay. So this entire process of design and code is a parallel process. So you design, you code. If something does not work, you inform the design team, they change the design, you code again. So it's a cyclic and continuous process. So don't wait for the entire designs to come, code along. To the next app, ICS. The question that should always be there in the mind of the entire team, the design team, the technology team, and the entire business and everyone is, can this design be converted to code? The short answer is all designs can be converted to code. It's not an issue. The question is, within the limited time frame that you have, can it be converted? It's a trade-off that you have to make. Like, we know brands have their own special designs to make their brand prominent. So it's a trade-off between becoming relevant and delivering on time. So make this choice, and also make sure that when you are trying to modify the guidelines too much, keep in mind that a lot of apps and services that people use follow those guidelines. So you're breaking the mental model that is there in people's mindset. So in Mac, you expect, as mentioned, in Mac, you expect the close button on the left, and on Windows, you expect it to the right. Let us assume you make a new operating system and you put the close button in the middle or bottom or somewhere. So it can be helpful, but it takes people time to get used to the habit of doing that. And once you do that, you have to keep in mind that the users are not only using your app. There are multiple apps that the users are using. So the user has to have mental model of where the close button is for each separate operating system. So be very, very sure if you want to break those guidelines and have solid reasons to break those guidelines. So in this design, as you can see, few reasons why this is a bit difficult to convert to code in a very short span of time is the place where 1.31 GB is written. We have, if you look closely, we have double shadows. So we have a shadow beneath a shadow. And then also that component has 2 round corners and 2 sharp edges. Can be coded. Concern is it's not a standard component, so you need to do the entire thing up from scratch. So that's a concern. So let's move to the third app that we made, which is GoGrocery. So behavior driven development. This sounds like a very fancy name and seems like why should I even care about it? Okay. It boils down to the very same fact that Ruben earlier mentioned about analytics. That analytics help you improve the design. And this is a cyclic repeated process. You launch a version of the app and then you look at the analytics. So this was an app that we made. It looks neat. It looks good. We did not find any flaw with it. We did basic testing. So we did not find any flaw with it. So once we got to understand from the user's perspective from the data, we had to modify a few designs. One of them was the large, on the home page, we have a large slideshow, which was not providing any direct value to the app. It was consuming real estate on the app, and users had to scroll past it to start ordering something. So that was one thing that we observed. And this was possible because we are understanding the behavior of the users from the data that we have. We have 2 types of testing. One is if the code works well, which is test driven development. Like you click a button, it is supposed to order and the order is happening. That is how the code testing works. So it makes sure that the code works fine. But the second concern is your code is not going to be consumed by the coders who made it. It's going to be consumed by some end users. So you need to make sure that the end users are able to understand it properly. Like yesterday, Smarak was showing me an app which was Spotify playing in command line. Like you write some commands in terminal and you can play Spotify. Looks fine. That's the entire job of Spotify. The concern is how many people will use it. Good for coders like us and few interested people, but not for the end users who are the large audience that we have. So behavior driven testing is an important part of that. The second issue that we have is the cart. So on the cart, we have the checkout button on the very top. The idea was that it is visible. We thought it's visible, but it was not very visible when we tested it with some users. The concern became when we had a large number of items in the order cart. So people had to scroll to reach the bottom to check their orders. And once they reach the bottom, they can't find the order now button. The button is on the very top. So all these concerns will only come once you start understanding the behavior of the end users. So you need to have both kinds of testing. One is behavior driven testing to understand the end users. One is code testing to make sure your code does the intended job. Okay? And with that, that is pretty much of what we learned from these 3 apps. As mentioned by Ruben, the 3-point design, the 3-point gradient thing. So it is possible to code. The concern was within the limited time frame. And also, it was not so easy when we were coding in Flutter because Flutter was very new in those times. The libraries have updated. So when you're coding or designing, always make sure that you stay updated with the present architecture of the code framework that you're using. It is possible that something was difficult 2 years back, but maybe they brought in some libraries which makes it easy for you right now. And also you can see that in this particular app that we made, we have the bottom menu bar. This is not a standard way of how a bottom navigation bar looks in any Android or iOS app. This was a custom design. Okay. So since we knew it from the beginning, it's a custom design, and Ruben also knew it. So he asked first up before designing it, can this be done? Because he knows that what can be coded easily, what cannot be. And this comes with experience, and this comes when you start understanding the guidelines. So it's a trade-off that we made that yes, we can do it. Why not? Because we have sufficient time. For the Institute Counseling Services app, the issue that we had was we had limited time frame. So we did not want to invest the time to have those fancy gradient animations. So with that, let's move to the next slide. Yeah, the question collaboration, how to start. Like we have a design team, we have a development team, and then how to start. So the first thing that you need to understand is, even before you start making anything on any software, be it the code aspect of it or be the design aspect of it, you need to sit down and have a meeting with the entire team. This is how a proper project will work. Unless you have a meeting regularly with the entire team, the ideas get lost in transit. A very good explanation of ideas getting lost in transit is, let's assume that you tell the designers that people sign up using their mail ID and we verify the mail ID. So there's a verification system. There's a verification system. So unless you properly explain it, have them all of them sit down and work together, the information transit loss that has actually happened with me is, the designer thought that in the mail we'll be getting an OTP, and the OTP the user will be entering in the app. Okay? So the verification system involves OTP is what the user understood. But what the actual code was supposed to do is, people will be getting a link in the mail and people click on the link to verify. Both are possible ways, but what the designer understood and what the development team wanted are two different things. So this can only be resolved only if you sit down and have the meetings done together, the discussions done together. And the next step about starting off is that even before you start sketching and making the code, is you need to understand the mental model and the end user's mindset. You need to make a rough sketch of like, what are the use cases of the app, what are the different elements that are going to be, how the user flow is going to happen. The moment you understand the user flow, people click on the sign up button, then come to the home page and then do these stuffs. So first design those stuffs even before you start designing the components, because once the user flow is ready, the components can be modified later. Because at the end of it, these services are going to be used by end users, and we need to be able to predict what we want the users to do. If it's a grocery service app, we want the user to actually order. So the user flow should, at the end of all the different user flows that may happen from home page or from any page, we want them to go to the order page and click the order button. So make sure that the end goal of your purpose is fulfilled in the user flow, like irrespective of how many user flows you have from multiple paths, from the home page or from other page people are coming, but there is the end goal of the service of the app that is provided. Make sense? And this is to make sure that the app delivers what it's expected to do. Else, half of the development will cause issues when we start to integrate the design into code. Over to you, Ruben. Next. A very debated question is, should designers code? So an example of, we have animations, we have components. Why not we have the entire design team code it for us? Why should we code it? Because first they design it and then we code it. Why to have a two-step process? The concern is, it is too much to expect that a designer will code, because to the coders it seems like bas component hai, usko code सीखने में क्या दिक्कत है? The concern is those components and designs have come from extensive research from the design team of how the user experience works, of the end user's mindset and everything. So a large chunk of what the designers do and the design team does is to understand and how the problem can be solved. It might seem that a designer spent a lot of time on the softwares, but to be very frank, a lot of it is spent using pen and pencil on a sketch pad. First, you have a rough idea of how it is done, and then you translate it into the design that you see. So a research and lot of effort is put into that. So now it boils back to, agar itna kuch kar rahe hain, to saath mein code bhi kar lo. So the concern is designers should not code. That is not the ideal way to do it. Designers, but they should know what code can do. Designers should not code. It's not expected of them, but designers should know what code can do. And this is where material design or other guidelines come into play. Those components that are there, those parameters that are there in those guidelines, those are parameters and values which can be coded easily because they are made by frameworks which is used by both designers and developers. So if you are having a design team and a development team, make sure to follow the guidelines, or else discuss to make sure that this particular UI UX element can be converted to code. If it cannot be converted to code, how long will it take? Because it's always within a time frame that we work on a project. So designers should know what code can do, and the best way to know that is to look at the guidelines. Next one, Ruben. Resolving conflicts. Yeah. So this particular aspect is very much minimized if designers know what code can do. So a large aspect of resolving conflicts in a team between designers and coders is this design looks good, but it cannot be coded, or we want the code to do this, but the design is not doing that. A large section of that can be minimized by following the first 2 points that I mentioned. First is to have all the meetings and discussions together so that the design team knows the entire stuff, the development team knows the entire design process. As time progresses, it is expected that the design team knows a basic idea of what code can do, and the development team is also supposed to have a basic idea of how design works. Like, this is how a mental model works, because at the end of the day, once you have a complete understanding of how a service works, it's easy for you to solve bugs later in time and to understand why this particular thing is being done. And if at all we have conflicts, the best way to resolve all this is that sit together, the design team shows the design, and you start coding it so that they know that this particular thing cannot be done. The best way is always sit together in a room and communicate. Unless you communicate, the designs cannot be transferred into code. And that is pretty much of what we had in learning. And if I'm not wrong, that is pretty much it from my end. Ruben, can you check the slides?
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks, people. And if you have questions, concern, feel free to ask. Because yeah, we have done mistakes. We have done mistakes totally from second year to now final year. We can say that we have done mistakes, but yeah, we have learned a lot. And you asking questions would make sure that you don't repeat the same mistakes.
So Abel, Amir Ranjan has asked, how can we integrate Code Sandbox with Framer?
On Framer, if you're using Framer Motion, there's directly an option to open in Code Sandbox. So if you're using an existing design from Framer Motion, there's an option, you click on a button and it opens directly in Framer Motion, directly in Code Sandbox. If not, you're doing some custom design, you go to Code Sandbox, you click React, you select React if you're doing it for web. Harish, can you mute? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So if you're using Code Sandbox directly, you can go to Code Sandbox website. And if you're doing for web dev, which is what Framer Motion is usually used for, but there are multiple use cases as well. You select React and you will get a window which has the code on the left and the UI on the right end. And you import the Framer Motion package in Code Sandbox and you will be good to go. As simple as that.
Amir, can you confirm in the chat that you got it answered? Like you understood what Abel has just explained?
So it will be better if I saw a demo.
Okay. I could not hear what he said.
He said it would be better if you could show him.
Okay. I'm really sorry. I'm on the phone right now. I would get back to you on personal chat or somewhere. I'll show you how it is done. So works fine.
Yeah, DMS on Instagram will reach out to you. It's Amir, right? Amir will. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll do that. And we have Rutaj asking about Figma. Yeah. So Figma is something which designers are expected to know. So Figma is one of the reasons why we did not mention Figma in any of the toolkit is because that is something which almost a large bunch of us already know. So yes, Figma is a go-to option. Figma even has an option to export to CSS and XML file for Android. So it works really fine. This entire presentation that you see is made in Figma. So Figma works really great. So hands off to Figma. And it is something that is used as of now by Ruben at Hotstar as well, if I'm not wrong. Ruben?
Yeah, so Hotstar, can you hear me? Hello? Yeah. So Hotstar has recently adopted Figma. Swiggy is on Figma. Almost Spotify is on Figma. So all these major companies, right, the design team are moving to Figma because of the collaboration abilities and because of its ease of use. Right? So it works better than almost anything in the industry right now.
But at the end of the day, having these tools will not make you a great designer. So you become a great designer by those sketches that you make on pen paper, but the research that you do. These tools will help you speed up the process of developing the components. But those ideas of where to put what components, those come from those brainstorming sessions that you are going to have.
These tools basically where they help the most is when, in a product company, let's say you're in a product company and you're in a fast-paced design process, right? Ki matlab har din there's something coming in, something going out, right? So you need to try and test different concepts, right? So you can't have you can't have different paper prototypes and then finally go on to one visual design. So what these tools help, right, is in basically obliterating your paper wireframes and all. So basically what you can do is quickly run up to Figma and prototype whatever you have in mind, and it's like really quick and it can be done in like seconds, right? So you can try out different designs and see what works, what does not work. You can create a let's say a working prototype for user testing, right? So these tools really help there. The other utility as to design the screen, those utilities were covered by other tools also, like Illustrator and Photoshop, the way they were doing it earlier. But these tools really help in rapid prototyping, like not the other kind, but quick prototyping basically. Yeah. Any other questions?
And adding to what Ruben said about design systems, like you see the posters that we roll out for all the entire Preptember series. We are able to make one poster in roughly 5 minutes, not even more than that. It's because we have a consistent design system of a set of components and what to put where. So once you invest time to have a design system, reiterating to make new components is very easy. Even this particular template that we used, template that we made to use for this PPT. So once Ruben made the first two screens of the PPT, it was easy for us to replicate because we are reusing the same components using the design system that we already have. So invest time to set up the basic layout of the design system and the core system that you have. Heavily invest time in that. Once you invest time in that, it's easy to scale up. Even if your app or service launches a new feature after you launch the first version, if you have a design system, you know how to design those new features. You don't need to start up from scratch. So this really helps you.
Any other questions?
I think that is pretty much it. Let us wait for like 30 seconds more maybe. Questions, concerns, anything, feel free to ask us.
Yeah, about anything you want to ask.
Okay, if I'm not wrong, that is what the audience had to ask. Thank you all for joining. I hope this clears some of your queries you had. If you have further queries, feel free to reach out to us on any platforms, preferably Slack, because we are very active there. So you can ask us anywhere you want. Yeah, Ruben is not on Slack. Ruben is kind of very unavailable. So if you want to reach out to Ruben, you need to send him a mail.
Yeah.
So step 1 to reaching out to Ruben is finding his mail ID. And then step 2 is to write a proper mail.
Yeah. Come on. Just kidding, guys. You can WhatsApp me if you need my number. I don't know who to ask. Ask one of these guys. And or you can just reach me on Instagram.
Yeah, Ruben.
I'm sure you don't have any questions.
Ruben is super active on Instagram.
Yeah. All right, guys. Great session.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks again for joining once again. Have a great day and stay safe. Take care.
We really hope this was helpful for you guys. Yeah. See ya. Good night, people. Bye.